Welcome to the Lazy Girl's Guide to Podcasting. If you want effective and actionable tips to simplify the overwhelm of launching and managing your podcast, then this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Verity Songon, podcast manager, launch strategist, and host of a Top 100 podcast. I'm really excited to have you here, so without further ado, let's dive into the episode. Welcome back to the Lazy Girl's Guide to Podcasting, episode 4. Can't believe that we are at episode 4 already. That seems insane. Anyway, in this episode, we are going to be talking about creating your intro, and there are a few different aspects that we're going to cover. Namely, we're going to cover music, call to actions, your introduction generally and how to script it, length of your intro, variety, and also just finish off with some top tips. So first of all, music. When you are finding music for your intro, it's really, really important that the music you use is not copyrighted and you're not using music illegally, basically. So I like to use something called Pond. Now I'll link that down in the show notes below. There are loads of different platforms that you can use to get music from, which is royalty free, and you can use from a commercial standpoint, but Pond is my favorite. You want to be making sure that the music that you get fits your branding and also fits the tone and mood of your podcast, because do remember that the music is the first thing that people are going to hear in your intro and to your podcast. So you want to make sure that the music is really setting the right tone. So consider what kind of music you like, consider what your podcast is about, who your audience is, and then find music to match those things there. You want to be keeping it quite short as well. Ideally, your podcast intro wants to be 30 seconds or less. Any longer, you're going to start losing people's interest there. So the other thing that you're going to want to include in your intro is potentially a call to action. So it could just be something as simple as stay listening for this coming up. It could be that you are asking somebody to subscribe to your podcast before they continue listening. If you're going to be including a call to action in your podcast intro, you want to be keeping it short and sweet. Remember that people at the beginning of your podcast, they just want to dive in. They just want to get the goodness of what you are going to give them in that episode. They don't want a long list of tasks. So if you are going to include a call to action, you want to keep it as simple and at minimal points as possible. And it could just be something as simple as asking people to subscribe to the podcast if they're enjoying it, or just to dive in, stick around, because this is the amazing content that you are going to be getting in the rest of the episode. What you're also needing to be thinking about in your intro is introducing yourself. Now, this could be done in a range of ways. Hi, I'm Verity. I'm the host of the Confident CEO podcast. That's what I might say in my other podcast, obviously not this one. But keeping it short and sweet, introducing yourself. Consider if people have never listened to your podcast before, because people will start listening to your podcast at different rates. The last time you found a podcast, did you go all the way back to episode 1 and listen to the trailer, and then episode 1 and 2 and 3, or did you just listen to the episodes that interested you the most, or the most recent one? So from that point of view, that's why it's so important to introduce yourself as the host at the beginning of each episode in your intro. And also just a reminder as well, if you want to, as to what podcast it is or which podcast it is that your audience is listening to. As I've already said, you want to keep your podcast intro relatively short and sweet. Around 30 seconds seems to be a good sweet spot. However, I've known some podcast intros to only be a couple of seconds long, literally less than 5 seconds, and other ones over the minute mark. Now, less than 5 seconds, brilliant. Like I said, the shorter the better, because people want to just dive into the content that you are giving them. Anything longer than 30 seconds to a minute, longer than that, you're probably going to start losing people's attention, unless you have just got the best intro known to man. So I would keep it short and sweet. As I said, 30 seconds max would really hit a good sweet spot there. And finally, what I want to talk about is having a potential variety for intros. This works well for some podcasts, not for others. Some people like to have one intro and they just put that intro at the beginning of every single podcast, and that is absolutely fine. However, some people might find that if they do their podcast in series, they want a different intro for each series to kind of show that there is a transition and growth in the podcast. Equally, you might find that you've been running your podcast for quite some time, and now you're thinking to yourself, well, actually, that intro no longer fits my podcast. I want to change it up. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. Equally, you might have some really exciting news coming up and you want it to be the first thing that people listen to and the first thing that your audience hears before you dive into the goodness of your podcast. It could be that you've got a new course coming out or a new service starting or a sale going on, in which case you might want to do a one-off intro that goes just for 1 or 2 episodes. There is nothing wrong with having variety, for switching things up and for changing things around should it feel good. It's your podcast at the end of the day, so why not? I want to finish off with 5 top tips for when it comes to creating your intro for your podcast. First one is, once you've created your intro, save it as an MP3, and then every time you create a new podcast episode, when you come to editing, you can just drop that MP3 straight into the front of your editing. It's so much easier than trying to record it every single time. Number 2, practice before recording. A lot of people prefer their episodes to be much more raw these days and not necessarily as heavily edited, but I would recommend practicing your intro a few times before you hit record and you actually get it out there and going. Number 3, as I said, it's okay to change your intro. Podcasts evolve, you evolve as a host, different ideas and trends come in. It is absolutely fine to change up your intro if you feel that that is relevant to you, but also don't feel the pressure if you don't want to. Number 4, remember that it's your intro. So whilst there might be a load of people doing X, Y, and Z in their intros, or I'm saying that, you might want it less than 5 seconds. If you want to do a 20-second intro, which lists all the colours of the rainbow, go for it. Bit of a random example, but it's your intro. So regardless of the advice that's out there, as I said, it's your intro, it's your podcast, and you are the host. So go with whatever makes you happy and what feels good for you. And number 5, above all, just have fun. When it comes to creating podcasts and podcasting, it is a really fun medium to be in. You get to express yourself in just in some ways in your truest form. So just have fun with creating your intro, because if you are having fun creating your intro, it really comes across like that and people can feel your warmth and your enthusiasm through your intro. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode talking about creating your podcast intros. If you go to veritysongone.com/podcast intro, I've also got a free download in there to help you put together the intro for your podcast. Hope you like that, and the link for that will also be in the show notes. And I'll see you next episode.